What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks Island Podcast, the only NFL podcast where a year takes from a washed-up Division III cornerback and his friends. And in today's episode, we're going to be giving our top over and underrated fantasy players for the upcoming 2025 NFL season. So we're going to be breaking down, first off, we're going to give our over and underrated players. It's mainly skill groups, so running backs, receivers, or tight ends. And then we'll be giving kind of our thoughts on the quarterback draft process and ADPs, things like that afterwards. And then Ethan's got something fun for us coming up after that. So make sure to stay tuned to the end. So starting off first, I'll let you go first, Ty. Do you want to choose over or underrated? And then who's your first guy going to be?
Yeah, I'll go with my overrated / overvalued running back. I'm going to go with Ashton Jeanty. Currently, he's going at ADP 11 overall, RB5. I just think this is, super early for a guy who's coming into an offense that, I like what they have going on in the passing game, but the offensive line, as far as run blocking, it just isn't there, right? Last year they were dead last in rushing. Obviously, I think that's, a little bit of the running back, group that they had going there. But then you saw, right, preseason week 1, they really struggled to get Jeanty going. And I think a lot of it was the run blocking. So, then you add on to that too, just a quick stat on like the other running backs around him. 8 of the top 12 running backs based on ADP were in the top 15 scoring offenses, meaning, your running back's going to have a really good chance of scoring touchdowns. There's a couple others that like were close, like, the Rams, right? If they had Puka and Cup all season.
Puka and Neighbors would be.
I'm thinking about my draft and where I am in the draft. Puka and Neighbors are going to be there. Anyways, Puka and Cup, right? Like that would have brought, Kyron Williams into that group as well. So, and then you look at the Raiders, right? Jeanty is in one of those 4 of the 12. The Raiders were finished 29th in scoring. So that was the lowest of all the top 12 running backs based on the ADP. So it's just not the scoring opportunities in the run game are not going to be there. This is also a team that loves to throw the ball, right? They brought in Geno, obviously new coaching staff, right? But last year they were one of the, offenses that threw the ball the most in the NFL. You bring in Chip Kelly, who's, just think about some of the offenses that he had at Oregon, right? They're going to throw the football. So I just, and you bring in Geno Smith, right? You don't bring Geno Smith in to just hand the ball off all the time. So I think there's going to be a lot of focus on the pass game for them. Their run blocking is kind of weak. I mean, there's definitely room for them to grow, and Jeanty will definitely help in the run game, just being a better back. But when you think about like the scoring opportunities for backs, that's really what gets them a lot of points. So that's why I think he's just going high. Like there's guys, that are going behind him, like Derrick Henry, right? He's going to get a lot of touchdowns. You assume he's going to be on the goal line a lot. Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, right? Like these guys are just in better offenses and being taken after Jeanty because Jeanty is like, the hype around him, the talent, it's there, but you got to look around at what's surrounding him as well.
Yeah. Ethan, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think you are just kind of like riding and dying with this being pretty much the entire Raiders offense. And I don't really think it's going to be the entire Raiders offense. I'm not sure how much Geno really likes to check the ball down. I think he kind of likes to see what he can get away with further down the field than a little over the middle. And yeah, their O-line is a little questionable, and Ashton Jeanty can certainly pass catch out of the backfield, but I think his main skill set or his selling point really is his early down work. And seeing as the Raiders are probably not going to be in a lot of close games, or they're going to be down a lot, perhaps he's probably not going to be getting as much receiving work as people thought. So, yeah, I mean, this guy, he's going at ADP 13.9. So he's the 11th player off the board, but he's kind of right at that 1-2 turn range. And I kind of just like other people around there. Like I love Ashton Jeanty. Thought he was a great prospect. He grew up like a little bit near me, so he got that hometown bias. But yeah, I mean, I would rather have Derrick Henry. I'd rather have Nico Collins. I'd rather have Brian Thomas Jr. And you can kind of just let someone else make this pick. And first round pick, it might burn you, but it really doesn't win you your league that often, especially if it's a rookie in the first round. So yeah, I'm comfortable letting someone else take this pick.
Yeah, and to me, it's like I know some people were talking also about his value dropping because of his preseason like -3 yards on like 3 rushes, whatever. Like, but if you watch that film, like Ty said, his O line's probably like average, maybe a little bit below. It's in the average range. I think the O
PFF ranked
line's
him at 18. So
yeah, so a little bit below the league average, I just don't think that does him any favors. And this isn't a dynasty league, right? I think if it's a dynasty league, this ADP should be a little bit higher. But for the redraft league, for his first rookie season without seeing him step on an NFL field, I think it's a little bit high to put him above guys like Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, like Ty just was saying. So you guys hit it on the nail. I just think Ashton Jeanty, as solid of a running back as he is, and as much hype, and I hope that he does well this season, I just don't think having him as a possible first round running back just isn't in the cards for me that this season personally. Ethan, moving on to you, what is going to be your number one overrated prospect going into this draft?
Yeah, so my number one overrated player, I'll stick on running backs here, is Chuba Hubbard. He's going at ADP 50.7 as the RB17. He doesn't really have any pass catching ability at all. And in like a Panthers team that's probably going to be down most of the games that they're in, like RB17 is kind of his ceiling. And they brought in some competition with Rico Dowdle, Trevor Etienne, and some more target competition to the little targets that Chuba's going to get in Tedero McMillan. And a lot of people are projecting a step up from Jalen Coker as well, maybe some Hunter Renfrow action in there. So I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. And like, he got a lot of carries last year, and I don't really see that happening much again. And you're kind of drafting him. Like, there's not a lot of room for him above RB17, but there's a lot of room below. And I just don't like to draft that way.
Yeah, Ty, anything to add?
yeah, I just think there's a couple guys behind him too that I like the upside more, like Breece Hall. You know, the Jets are going to run the football. James Conner, I know Sterb's a big James Conner guy. When healthy, you know, he produces. And even the upside of Trevion Henderson and RJ Harvey behind him, I think is just higher than what Chuba Hubbard can provide, because those guys bring a lot in the pass game as pass catchers. So, you know, they're a little bit of a more risky play, but definitely the Breece Hall, James Conner. When you look at the guys that are getting taken around him, if you're looking for a running back, especially with bringing in Rico Dowdle, who had a pretty good season last year in Dallas, I just think things get a lot tougher for him.
Yeah, and James Conner is a guy, right? He was 11th in the position last season in fantasy, so I don't see why they really have him dropping off that much. I think he's going to have a similar type of role, so he'll be in that probably. I'd give him 10 to 13 range in the running back category. I know we're not talking about him, but that does overrate Chuba if you're putting him above that type of guy. I just think Chuba, right? I think he's a solid running back, but he's I wouldn't say he's as consistent as I'd like him to be if I'm drafting him above some of these other guys like James Conner. I think James Conner is really consistent when it comes to fantasy, so I'd put him above him as well. My number one overrated player is going to be, or not number one, I should say, but first is going to be Garrett Wilson. He's at ADP 44.6, which is receiver 16 in the fantasy drafts right now. And if you look at the fantasy rankings right now, right, that's above guys like, let's see. I mean, that puts him above Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, all three guys that I think could have bigger roles in their offense than a guy like Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson's that offense is going to be primarily rushing in Justin Fields' first season. They have a new OC calling plays as well. So I think that could provide a slow start to Garrett Wilson's season. And Justin Fields is coming in as a starting quarterback who could rely on his legs a little bit more than we've seen other quarterbacks in that Jets offense prior to Justin Fields. And when you're picking him in those slots to, like, in general, I think you could go running back in that range instead of Garrett Wilson. I just don't think the value there. If you're talking dynasty and this guy's like a long-term pick and you're not worried about this season, sure, you go Garrett Wilson over Terry McLaurin, Mike Evans. But this year, I'm taking guys like that 100% over him in that slot. So what do you guys think about Garrett? I know that a lot of people like Garrett Wilson, and it's similar to like a Chris Olave in my eyes. Is like these guys are really, really skilled, but I don't like the offense that they're currently in to support them for fantasy.
Yeah, I think the one thing Garrett's got going for him is like he's been a 1,000-yard receiver no matter what.
Yeah.
Like every season with, you know, all the turmoil that's gone on with quarterback play, with head coach, you know, OC. And he's got the connection with Justin Fields, and, you know, he is the only receiver there. But right, like you talked about, you know, the run game, it's going to be a heavy emphasis in this offense. You think about what the Lions were, right? It was a lot of that Jameer Gibbs, David Montgomery kind of play action type of offense. I don't necessarily know that they're going to be able to run all of that with Justin Fields, but Justin Fields brings that, next level of the running ability to the offense as well. So yeah, when you talked about Mike Evans, even guys like the upside of Marvin Harrison, you look at Cortland Sutton, Rashee Rice probably playing the full season now. All guys that are being taken behind Garrett Wilson right now in ADP. So, I don't hate Garrett Wilson, but I think just the guys around him and behind him provide more upside.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Sterb, anything to add?
Yeah, this is obviously like a not his fault sort of situation. Like I like Garrett Wilson a lot. He's a great wide receiver, but this is the pinnacle of like the who else argument. Like he might have like a 30% target share, but in this offense, this is probably going to be bottom 3 passing offenses in the league. And I don't really think that there's that much movement up from there. And he does have that chemistry with Justin Fields. Like the O-line should be good. But still, there's a lot of questions about how the offense is really going to look. So, I think he's a little overvalued right here.
Yeah, and like you just said, Sterb, we're not trying to knock Garrett Wilson as a player because he has all the talent in the world. It's just fantasy-wise, this value is a little bit iffy for him. Ty, who's going to be your number 2 overrated player?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy, currently going at ADP 50th overall, wide receiver 21. Currently above Rashee Rice, and obviously the news of Rashee Rice probably playing the entire season, at least the first 4 months. But the rumors are that, because with the suspension possibly being pushed out, they would look at it to be next year. They don't often do suspensions mid-season. So, Rashee Rice being there the whole season, they get Hollywood Brown back, who missed most of last season as well. They just brought in Jalen Royals, who's apparently looked very good in training camp. He's had a great connection with Pat Mahomes. Was one of their leading receivers in the preseason games as well. You think about all those factors, right? There's a lot of mouths to feed. And then you think about what Worthy was able to do last season with Rashee Rice missing the whole season, Hollywood Brown missing most of the season. He didn't have a single 100-yard game all last season. In a season that we saw Travis Kelce kind of take a step down. We saw Isaiah Pacheco miss a lot of time. So the run game is kind of struggling. So when you take all these factors into place, right? Like last season, obviously being a rookie, but he was supposed to be like the guy for them with all these guys going down, and he just didn't really show out. Obviously, he had a really strong postseason, but the postseason for the regular season, I mean, it's a different ball game. We saw Julian Edelman look like a Hall of Famer in the postseason. So I just think like I said, there's a lot of mouths to feed, and just I'm really high on Jalen Royals too. I mean, I have him in Dynasty, so I kind of had to be high on him. But from all that I'm seeing in camp, it is just like that him and Mahomes are kind of developing something, that he's been a star, he's been a standout. And then you look at the preseason game, right? He obviously didn't play with the ones, but he was one of their leading receivers. So he's showing out too. So it's just, there's a lot of guys. And that Mahomes loves Rashee Rice. He loves Travis Kelce. So those are going to be 1 and 2. And then you look at, who's going after Worthy. He's not that far after Wilson. So it's, it's Rashee right now. It's Cortland Sutton. It's Devonta Smith. Some of those guys, I would take them over Xavier Worthy right now.
But Ty, he's fast. He's super fast, man.
And I see the argument, right? They're like Tyreek Hill, right? But he's just not the same receiver that Tyreek Hill is.
No,
and this isn't the same offense that they had.
He's 170 pounds.
And and he was the receiver 33 last season, right? And that's with, like you said, Rashee Rice out for the majority of the season after injuring his knee. And I just think, like you said, Rashee Rice is I think he's the more valuable receiver in this offense at this point in time, especially with the suspension news, things like that coming out today, that he's probably not going to be suspended. So I think you got to take Rashee Rice over Xavier Worthy. If you're on the clock and you're considering one or the other, it's got to be Rashee Rice over Xavier Worthy. Sterb, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I don't really hate him here, but the thing is, he's just super volatile, and I don't think he's ever going to be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. Because you don't see 170-pound wide receiver 1s in fantasy. It just doesn't happen. Yeah. And if you're starting him as a wide receiver 2, you're kind of just hoping that he catches 2 touchdowns in the game and gets you there. But that's not really that viable of a strategy. And I kind of just like other guys in his range.
Yeah,
And
he's
at
like,
wide receiver 21, you're not taking a wide receiver 2, right? You're still looking, hunting for wide receiver
Exactly.
1. So.
Xavier Worthy to me is more of like a flex kind of guy. Like that's kind of where I would see him. Like I don't really see him as, I'm not trusting him as like a starting every week receiver 2.
And it's a consideration flex, right? It's like, who am I playing? You know, him or this guy, right?
If you're down 20 and like you got him going into Monday night, then like that's
you're feeling good. Yeah, you're feeling good. Anyways, Sterb, who's going to be your next overvalued player on your list?
So I actually have the wide receiver that's in ADP right after Xavier Worthy, and that is DJ Moore. I think he was going off the board at wide receiver 21. But DJ Moore, whose ADP is 62.2. So you're taking him, like I said, wide receiver 22. So like back end, wide receiver 2. He was 37th last year in wide receiver PFF grade. Last year, he also had a 1.6 yards per route run. That's 58th in the league. And I know what people are going to say. He was in a bad offense or whatever. Was kind of just like in a clown show. But that's behind Noah Brown. That's behind Quentin Johnston. That's behind wide receivers who are also in a bad offense like Michael Pittman Jr. And it's way lower than Josh Downs. I want to say it was like less than half of Josh Downs. He was just incredibly poor on a per target basis, 0.04 EPA, which is it's actually terrible. And like considering that you're expected to be a wide receiver 1 last year, he just absolutely crumbled. I've been fighting the good fight with against DJ Moore last year. Jenks and I had a little conversation about him versus Nico Collins, and he took DJ Moore last year before the season. So I've been telling people that DJ Moore is just really not like that for a while now. And, you know, it kind of played out last season. And for some reason, he's going wide receiver 22 here, even though I think Rome is the better talent on this offense. And
really,
he's like I think he's a better talent. And he's like really the only one in ADP that's getting like the Ben Johnson bump, where he's like, if they just got like a average play call, or maybe he's going like ADP 85 instead of 62.2. But like Rome is way down the board. Colston Loveland's way down the board. DeAndre Swift is way down the board, you know, and it's really only DJ Moore that's getting propped up. And, you know, I'm just going to fade that every single time if I can take another piece in that offense. And also like the ADOT was low, but like he was like half a yard off of, again, Josh Downs, Puka, Cooper Kupp, CD, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So like all those little slant targets, it's really not as much of an impact as people may seem. People may make it out to be. And there's also been questions about Caleb Williams' like ability to run the offense. You know, everyone's seen the training camp clips. I don't really buy into those, but it does raise some questions. And this guy's old. He's coming off a terrible season, and I'm really not expecting much of a bounce back from him at all.
Yeah, see to me, I think, and Ethan, he mentioned that we discussed DJ Moore versus Nico, and obviously after the season, I was like, yeah, Nico's a lot better than DJ Moore. I still think DJ Moore is a solid receiver. I would say this value, it's not great, but it's also, in my opinion, it's not like a crazy overvalue, but I do think, like you said, Stir, I think, right, Rome Odunze, he's going to be stealing some targets. I think they added other weapons right in the draft. I mean, you add Colston Loveland, you add Luther Burden Jr. or Luther Burden the third. I think it's not junior, it's the third.
Yeah, but like you look at the guys who's going around him, and like just after him is Zay Flowers. I'd rather have Zay Flowers. Rashid, we just talked about Rashid. Cortland Sutton, I'd probably take over him at this point. Devontae Smith, I'd probably take. Calvin Ridley is a conversation. I think Calvin Ridley's pretty underrated in terms of ADP right now. I'd rather have Pickens. Jameson Williams is a conversation.
I mean, Travis Hunter's
there's a lot of guys. Yeah, I agree.
A lot
and
of these
Terrell McMillan, honestly, is a conversation as well. Like, there's a lot of wide receivers down the board where I'm just not taking DJ Moore over them.
DJ Moore and I will say the guy right behind him, Zay Flowers, to me, I'm not a fan of either. I've had Zay Flowers in fantasy before, and the way that he can disappear in big games it pisses me off. Like I've had him and had to deal with that. I mean, DJ Moore, right? Like I think he'll give you like a solid, you can kind of rely on, right? Like a 10-point game for the majority of the season. I think he had 10 points and everything except for like 4 to 5 games last year. But when you're taking him at the high,
I don't think so.
I'm like 90%. I'm 90% sure he had he had relatively above 10 games, I think, except for 5 games. But like even that, like you don't want like 10 points a game when you're taking him.
Kind of a lot.
Yeah, like it's not like that's not terrible, but that's still like a good amount of games when you're taking him at this value and you're taking him as your receiver 2 in the fantasy draft. Like you want a guy that can put up more than 10 points consistently. Like that's kind of what you're looking for from receiver 2. So like you guys said, like all those guys behind him are in the conversation for bigger play and bigger scoring than him. And a guy like I'm not gonna. Jerry Jeudy's not on my list. I hope that he's not on any of your guys' list either, because we know how Ty feels about him, and Sterb isn't the biggest fan either. But like he's a guy, like he's a receiver 1. I could see him having bigger scoring than DJ Moore, at least at their values. Like I'm just not the biggest fan for sure for DJ Moore either. I've never taken him in fantasy. Like he's just a receiver. I've never really been like, I want DJ Moore. That's going to be my guy this pick. I'm not the biggest fan. Moving on to my pick, my second and the last overvalued player for the episode. I'm going to go with CMC here. He's at ADP 8.3 on average, and he's being taken at running back 4 in fantasy drafts right now. We all know that like this is a lottery ticket, right? Like you're taking this guy, praying to God, praying to everything that you believe in, that this guy stays healthy for every game of the season. Because when he does it, he'll give you a running back 1, 2, 3 kind of range fantasy season. But he's stayed healthy for 1 season in the last 5, or 2 seasons in the last 5. So you're betting a little bit under a coin flip for him to stay healthy and save your fantasy season. And Sterb, Ty, and I were talking about this before the episode of I think it was Sterb who said this, if you're in a league that has a fantasy punishment and you're betting on this guy that could completely sink your season as a top pick in the draft, that's not what you want. It's not what you want. You want a guy that you can trust on to really just be the cornerstone of your team week in, week out, that you don't have to worry about starting and worry about injuries for. I mean, last year we were discussing preseason with CMC, like, oh, this guy it's just Achilles tendonitis, guys. It's just Achilles tendonitis. He's going to be fine. Don't worry about him taking him in your fantasy drafts. Went out, and I said, I'm not trusting it because the guy can't stay healthy. Gets in the season, and then the injury, things unravel. He plays only about, I think, like 5-6 games last season. Doesn't help people that drafted him early. So I think for me, CMC is, if you're taking him as a lottery pick and you truly know that he is just a lottery and you're taking him in the top 5 picks as that, sure, be my guest. Do whatever the hell you want. But I'm not touching him in the first round. I probably, maybe end of the second round, I would touch CMC. That sounds weird. I would draft CMC at the end of the second round. But I'm not a big CMC fan in fantasy right now, just regarding his prior injury history. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I just think like where he's going, right around like 8.3, like the strat there, like if you're picking at 8, you're coming back around at saying a 10 or a 12 man, not too far after, right? Just go wide receiver and come back in the second round and take one of the guys like Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, if Jonathan Taylor's there, right? There's a lot of good backs that are healthy, that play a lot of games, in that 6 through 13 range in the running backs, right before you get to Kenneth Walker, because he's hurt a lot. Those guys are often healthy. They produce, right? And like CMC at his healthiest, right? Yeah, he's a top fantasy player. But like you said, you can't bet on him. And like Sterb said earlier, right? First round picks don't win you your league, but they will lose your league if you screw it up. So if you take him, there's a really good chance, like you said, that you end up, with that fantasy punishment. If you take a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. and come back around with a Bucky Irving, there's like a far, smaller chance that you end up as one of the worst teams in your league, just because of the safety of the injury concerns, and that those guys are going to produce too.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown in that 8.3. Like right now, ESPN has been like ranked 9. I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown over CMC.
Puka,
10 out of 10 times. Puka, I'm clicking that.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys I would take over CMC.
But the guys right behind an 8 and 9 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. If you draft CMC, you better have a good body for modeling for some calendars, or you better like waffles or something like that. Like this is literally just how you lose your league right here. If you're going in like a public league and it's like your 21st league or whatever, and it's like, okay, I'm just going to take Christian McCaffrey and see what happens. But if this is like your league and you've done like any shred of research to know like where the values are further down the board, just don't take CMC. Let someone else do it.
Not worth it.
So like, yeah, at 8.3 ADP, like it's just not a viable strategy.
The risk outweighs the rewards for sure.
Yes.
So moving on from overvalued to undervalued, Ty, we'll let you go first. Who's going to be your first undervalued player?
Yeah, I think you guys are going to like this one. It's going to be Alvin Kamara, currently going at ADP 38th overall, RB 15. When you think about the offense, right, they're going to have a young quarterback, whether it's Shuck or whether it's Rattler. The O-line gets healthy. I know Jenks talked a lot about last year. The O-line was just banged up across the board. You had Kelvin Banks, right? I don't love Banks, but he's at least a serviceable offensive lineman at minimum, right? And then you bring in Kellen. Yeah, he's an upgrade, right? You bring in Kellen Moore, who, you think about some of the offenses that he's coached, right? He was in Dallas when they had Zeke. He was in Philly last year with Saquon, right? Like, they're going to run the ball. So I think this, is just a perfect formula for Alvin Kamara, a guy who already gets a lot of touches, to see an uptick in touches, right? And then you think about some of the production last year was RB9 to finish the season. Before he got injured, and that injury that hampered him kind of the rest of the way, he was at RB5. So we had this guy at RB5, and right now we're taking him at RB15. I mean, it's like we talked about McCaffrey, we talked about Jeanty. I'm taking Kamara over those guys, right? And then I think about some of the guys that are going ahead of him. Kenneth Walker, always hurt, hasn't really produced. I don't think he's had a 1,000-yard season. I'm taking him over Chase Brown. I like Chase Brown, but I think Kamara's ceiling is way higher. I'm taking him over James Cook. Is James Cook going to produce again with the number of touchdowns that he had? Kind of due for a touchdown regression. They like Ray Davis a lot, right? Like, there's not a lot of backs that I'm looking at, at this ranking, and I'm like, I trust them more than Alvin Kamara. Even Devin Achane, right? He's going at RB6, and he was, I think, RB4 last season. Yeah. Devin Achane's kind of reliant on a lot of those, like, dinked, he's like the check down merchant, right? They check it down to him all the time. If that offense gets back and rolling and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are back to what they are, is he seeing all those check downs too? So I like Alvin Kamara a lot. I'm hammering him in a lot of my leagues, especially like, where they were at 8 with McCaffrey, right? I'm taking in those leagues, I'm taking Puka and coming back around and maybe taking Kamara there. I've even had some leagues where I could come back around, take Josh Jacobs, come back on the other end and get Kamara, which is crazy, getting Kamara in the 3rd round for a guy who, and that's the type of pick that could win you your league, right? You take a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round that could be an RB5 that they're valuing at RB15. I just think it's the perfect scenario for him to have a really, really good season.
Yeah. No, I would say this real quick about Alvin. I think he's a guy that you can pencil in for 12 points a game, no matter what. Like, he was, except for the games, obviously they was out for the last 3 games of the season. He scored more than 12 points in every game but one of the games he was healthy, and I think he barely missed the 12-point mark. He was at 8, but that was the only game, and that was against the Broncos.
Yeah,
it was the Denver game, and he was shut down for like the second half. Like, they didn't really play him at all in that second half. He will get you 12 points. He's a guy that is great for PPR leagues, no matter his age. I know he's getting up there in age. He almost broke 1,000 yards the first time of his career last season, and I think this season he's gonna do it if he's able to stay healthy. I think he'll get those 1,000 yards. No, 1,000 rushing yards. 1,000 rushing yards for the first time in his career.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but he could get like above, I would say, 1,600 scrimmage yards, 1,700 scrimmage yards this year. That's possible in this new Kellen Moore offense. I think they're going to rely on him with the newer quarterbacks. And outside,
they have to. Do they have a choice?
Outside of the receivers of Shaheed and Olave and Juwan Johnson, I'll give Juwan Johnson a shout out, but those 3 guys are it. You don't have receiver depth past those 2 guys. The tight end room's a little bit banged up, and you're going to have to rely on Alvin here. I know they might give Kendre Miller and some other running backs some touches here, but they're not stealing fantasy value, a whole lot of fantasy value from him.
And this is a guy that you could maybe consider as a trade deadline move to a contending team too, right? If things are going really bad, you could see him getting traded and going to a contender, and then the touchdown volume goes up, right? So he's either getting a lot of touches in New Orleans or going somewhere else and has a chance to score a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah. Sterb, anything to add there as the other Saints fan?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we do this every year with Alvin Kamara. It's like
I don't
the
get it.
Saints
Yeah.
offense is going to be that good. The quarterback play is not that good, and then it's just like he produces at the same level, and it's just like, oh yeah, we'll draft him in the 40s every year because that sounds good. That makes sense, and it really doesn't. So, and I know Ty was talking about like if you pair up your picks like in similar ADP ranges, you could either go Christian McCaffrey. For like running back wide receiver combos, you can go Christian McCaffrey and Garrett Wilson, or at the same ADPs, you can go Alvin Kamara and CD Lamb or Puka.
Yeah.
It's just like a combo that it's not.
The first one makes me want to throw up.
It's not even remotely close, to be honest.
Yeah,
and it just feels like ridiculous that we do this every year. You know, like the Saints offense may not be good, but it's one thing you can set your clock to, and it's Alvin Kamara.
Exactly. 41. You'll see him in the box scores early and often throughout the season. Sterb, moving on to you for your first undervalued guy. Who do you got?
Yeah, for my first undervalued guy, I have Emeka Egbuka, who's going at ADP 128.3, wide receiver 48, this is absolutely criminal. Like it makes no sense. We saw the Bucs wide receiver 2, even if you think he's like a way better player than Chris Godwin earlier in the year, just like absolutely kill from that spot. And you know, like I'm expecting some regression from this Bucs offense. Like I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back with Liam Cohen. They scored a lot of touchdowns last year. I think it was like near 60. But he's had nothing but glowing reports coming out of camp. Like Baker's gone on and on about this guy. His target competition is old and declining. I know Jenks and I really don't think that highly of Mike Evans at this point. And Chris Godwin, we don't know about him. Like, he may not be coming back. Or he may be coming back at like a diminished level. We just really don't know. And I think all three of us and all four of us on the panel were pretty high in Emeka Egbuka coming into the draft. And he's a very good prospect, and he could earn like a lot of targets in this offense. And honestly, he could be the wide receiver 1 by week 8, week 9, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. So the fact that you're getting this guy at wide receiver 48, like ADP 128, is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Emeka. I don't remember where I had him in my receiver rankings, but I had him really high up there. I thought this guy is a guy like you could put in the slot and he will do exactly anything that you need him to do on the offensive side of the ball. He's going to be like for the Buccaneers, like you were saying, Sterb, he could replace that Chris Godwin role if Godwin's not healthy for the first few games. He could step in and never let it go, right? He's a guy that truly is everything you want in a fantasy player as well. He's a guy that will be I think he's going to be like a first down kind of merchant. He's not going to get a lot. I don't see him getting a lot of deep balls, but crossers, out routes, things like that, quick and easy receptions for Emeka or what you need for PPR. And he's going to get yards after catch, things like that. His values is really, really, like you just said, Sterb, undervalued, but I think he's a good pick late in the draft. So what do you think, Ty?
Yeah, and I just think, when you look at the guys that are going ahead of him, like Michael Pittman in an offense that doesn't have a quarterback, it's wild. But and I know we talked about Liam Cohen kind of going away, but then I think this offense is still going to see a lot of production because their new OC, Josh Crizzard, he was the wide receivers coach in Miami when Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in, I think it was 22 or 23, that season that they went absolutely insane. Great. He started as wide receiver coach in 22, and then he was there for 2 seasons. So he was a part of that high-powered offense. He was under Cohen. I think we're going to see a lot of, similar stuff. It's going to be very comfortable for Baker too. So I see no reason why like this offense still can't be, one of the highest scoring, most high-powered offenses in the league, which just means that there's more opportunities for guys, right? Like, and you think about the room, right? Like Bucky's going to get his targets. If Godwin's healthy, he's going to get his targets, and Mike Evans are going to get his targets. Cade Otton was the kind of that guy last year. Emeka Egbuka is going to get open more often. He's a better, receiver. I think that he kind of fills that role, and Cade Otton takes that step back. So, yeah, and like I said, right, it's Michael Pittman, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall.
He's 7 points in ADP behind Cameron Dicker. Like, what are we doing?
That's crazy.
What is going on? I don't understand. I don't understand.
Even Jordan Addison, who's going to miss some time, is going ahead of him. And I know Addison,
it doesn't make any sense.
Good, but that offense is dominated by Justin Jefferson too. So, I'm with you, Sterb. I think he's got a lot of upside, especially in what I think is going to continue to be a high-powered offense.
Yeah, like with Addison, I guess the argument is that he has like those games where he'll go off, but then he'll disappear for
Like
three
once
straight
every 6
as
games.
well. Yeah, so Emeka, I think, is in the position to have a more consistent role than a guy like Jordan Addison too. For me, my first undervalued guy is going to be Josh Jacobs at ADP 20.5 and RB9. So guys like we mentioned earlier, Ashton Jeanty going above him, CMC going above him. I'm 100% taking Josh Jacobs over both of those guys. He's a guy that after weeks 1 through 4, he scored in 10 of his last 13 games, touchdowns wise. He was on a roll for, I believe, like the last 8 games, whatever. He was scoring in every single one of those. And even in the games where he didn't score a touchdown in that first few weeks, he was still putting up good numbers. Without touchdowns in weeks 1 through 4, he still put up 12, 13. He had 5 against Tennessee because he didn't score, and then 11. Well, he didn't score in any of these, but 11 against Minnesota as well. So in games where he didn't score, he's still giving above 10 points. And when he does score, which is a consistent basis with these Packers, once they're in the red zone, they get within that 5-yard line, they're giving him a touch, they're getting him in the end zone. So he's a guy that I think in fantasy, you just can't. I'm definitely not fading him. At least I would say I would take him above the value that he's at versus below it. He has a similar rushing role again in this offense, and I just think he's healthy as well. Josh Jacobs is a relatively healthy back. He's a guy that you can trust to draft without worrying a guy like CMC being out for the whole season. I don't think Josh Jacobs is a guy you really have to worry about that as much with. So I like Josh Jacobs at his value a little bit higher than his value even in drafts. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, there's only really 2 guys on this offense that I'm even willing to touch. It's Josh Jacobs and Tucker Kraft. I know Sterb also loves Tucker Kraft, but when I look at the guys going ahead of him again, right, I think a lot of these scenarios, you got to look at who's going around him. I'm even almost more comfortable taking him than I am Derrick Henry, because I don't trust the Ravens offensive coordinator and the way that they use Derrick Henry, because they just phase him out of the game sometimes, which makes zero sense to me. But yeah, I'm really high on Josh Jacobs. I think he's, going to continue to thrive in this offense. They have a really good offensive line too, and they just continue to add depth in the offensive line too. So even if guys go down, they added, the Belton kid this past draft. They have a really, really deep offensive line, and Jordan Love's kind of dealing with a hand injury too. So right, are they going to start? And I know they said he's going to be fine by the regular season. The surgery went perfect, right? But you still feel some of that stuff, right? The surgery might go fine, but that's going to be something that could linger. So does this become a little bit more of a, in the early season, right, where you run the ball a little bit more, and then late in the season, right, when it gets cold, that's when you want to run the football too. So I trust Josh Jacobs a lot, and I think the game plan could be very beneficial for him from start to finish.
I do trust him. Yeah, I do trust him, but like the Packers were already like one of the most run happy teams, only behind Philly. And in terms of like the past 5 years, I want to say that like they were top 5 in terms of most run happy teams in a season. Like I still trust Josh Jacobs. I'd be perfectly fine taking him here. And I'd even just looking around him, like Jonathan Taylor, I think worse player in a worse offense that's going to just score less. So I don't really know why Jonathan Taylor's ahead of him. Josh Jacobs is a fantastic running back. And, I have the Packers is obviously one of my standout teams this year. I do think they're going to just kind of score more in offense, just be like a more prolific scoring offense. And even if like their rushing rate goes down by a few percentage points, like I think it'll be matched with the total output. So I'm perfectly fine with Josh Jacobs being underrated here.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think we touched on all the points for him. I just think he's too talented not to take above the value he's currently at. Ty, what's going to be your second undervalued player?
Yeah, it's going to be another Raider. It's going to be Jakobi Meyers. He's currently going at 86 overall, wide receiver 36, which is insane because this guy finished at wide receiver 19 last season, despite a lackluster offense. No offense to Aiden O'Connell, but shit quarterback play. I know Purdue, but they had a lot of quarterbacks. They had Ritter, they had O'Connell, they had Minshew, they had a lot of guys playing, right? And then you think about this offense, right? They love to throw the football, right? I mentioned that with Jeanty before. They're going to throw the football a lot. They bring in Geno Smith, so he's got more steady quarterback play. And a lot of the focus on this, the defensive focus is going to be on stopping Brock Bowers and stopping Ashton Jeanty, and rightfully so, right? They're the more talented guys. I think it's going to be pretty easy to stop the run game. Like we said, I don't really trust that offensive line in the run the run blocking aspect of things. But I just think that Meyers is really set up for success, with all the different offseason moves that they had. And he's flying under radar on the draft boards. He's going to fly under radar in a lot of defenses, schemes. Like I said, it's Brock Bowers. How do you stop the one of the best tight ends in the NFL, right? And then it's the run game. How do you stop, one of the most generational running backs that we've seen in drafts in a really, really long time? And a lot of the guys that we've already talked about being overvalued. I mean, I'm taking him. I know Xavier Worthy was going to like 21 and DJ Moore's going to 22. Yep. I mean, I would feel a lot more comfortable taking Jakobi Meyers at those positions than I would those guys. And, he is all the way down behind Cooper Kupp, who's missed a lot of time. I know Cooper Kupp's a really talented receiver. He's going into a new situation. He's got to compete with JSN. Does Sam Darnold keep it up? Right? Rome Odunze. What does that offense look like? We talked about it with DJ Moore. It's the same with him. Caleb Williams is struggling to grasp Ben Johnson's offense. Tet, okay, fine. I'm kind of high on him. I think he could do well. Jalen Waddle, Jerry Jeudy, bad offenses, right? So it's just like a lot of guys going ahead of him that it's like, I understand that the Raiders aren't going to be a great football team, but they're going to throw the ball a lot. Geno Smith, like you said, Jenks, is not dunking the ball off. He's going to chuck the ball around the yard. The guy that finished wide receiver 19, there's no world that he should be going 19 picks later or whatever it is. No reason he should be going this far later down the board when he gets a better quarterback, a better play caller, and the focus is now on other guys around him even more so than it was last year.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the Xavier Worthy thing too, because we said, right, Xavier Worthy is a guy that is most likely going to be a flex versus a receiver too, and he's going to be a guy that you're picking. Do I pick this guy or that guy when I'm going week to week? And I think this is a guy this is a guy that is similar to Xavier Worthy, but he might be a little bit more valuable. I think Jakobi Meyers is a guy that you're going week in, week out. Do I start Jakobi Meyers over Xavier Worthy? And I think more times than not, you'll pick Jakobi Meyers. After the start of the season, you'll see how they're playing. But I think Meyers is a really good pick here at his current value. Ethan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And another thing that like Jakobi Meyers, it kind of enables you to do is take like a bigger swing or like a bigger home run swing, like a little early in the draft. I know we don't like have that good of a position on Xavier Worthy or whatever, but like if he's not producing week to week, again, you can sub in Jakobi Meyers for like a low ADP price, or let's say you take the swing on Rashee Rice and he gets injured again or whatever. There's going to be a lot of holes you might have to plug if you're taking like big home run swings early or even late in your draft. That Jakobi Meyers is just going to be able to plug in. So, and we're using ESPN ADP for this, and this is ridiculous. Like, why is the Steelers defense with the 30-year-old secondary going ahead of Jakobi Meyers? It makes no sense to me at all.
TJ Watt.
Yeah, there's maybe two defenses that I would take above him, and you talked about Jakobi Meyers being a flex. I mean, he could be a stable wide receiver too, right? If he can produce at the range that he did last year, wide receiver 19. I mean, he might be my second receiver week in and week out, and no question, I'm just plugging him in. So
yeah, only if Geno gets injured and AOC comes in though.
All right, Sterb, who's going to be your second over or undervalued player?
Yeah, I have Colston Loveland here. He's I mentioned like I'm DJ Moore is like pretty much the only player getting the Ben Johnson bump. Colston Loveland's sitting at ADP 126.6, which is the tight end 12. Yeah. He's a high upside pick, which is kind of exactly what you want when you're not drafting a tight end in the top 5 tight end spots, because pretty much tight end 8 through tight end 20 scores about the same on average, and you can't really discern the difference if you're playing the waiver wire. So if you're going to take a swing, I would rather bet on a good prospect in an offense that has a high ceiling. He could be the potential safety blanket target for Caleb Williams. I think Rome is going to be more of that X like touchdown guy, but if you dump it off to Colston Loveland, he's actually a pretty good yards after catch threat over the middle, and he's very good at running up the seams. And he's one of the cheapest ways to buy into the Bears if you're into the Bears this season.
Yeah.
And being like a top 10 pick in the first pick of a Ben Johnson regime, who's who's, by the way, like he's pretty all right at drafting like in the first and second rounds, especially for skill positions. I think he knows what he's doing. So I'm just gonna ride with Ben Johnson here, and if I can get in for the cheap, I can get in for the cheap. So at tight end, where you're kind of just picking at straws after tight end 8 or so. I'm gonna rock with the high upside guy rather than sticking with like a Zach Ertz or like a Dallas Goedert. And you can even pair him with these guys, and then you have the high upside guy sitting on your bench until he's ready to go into that starting lineup.
Yeah, I definitely think Colston Loveland at his current value, I think that's really low, right? I mean, you see him in dynasty startup drafts, things like that, getting taken a little bit higher because he might take like a year or two to get into it. But I think this year he could be a guy that just immediately explodes in that offense. He's more of a receiving tight end than he is a blocking tight end. So you're not worried about him being in line and losing reps that way. I think he'll be used more in the slot, big slot, or running down the seam, things like that in this offense. And we've seen Laporta be an explosive guy in the similar Ben Johnson offense. And if you transfer that over and Colston Loveland becomes an immediate receiving threat for them, this value is just, you're getting a steal at that ADP. Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, he was my third overvalued guy. I don't really like him that much because I think there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. I'm also just not buying the Bears offense like at all. I'm not touching any of them. He's already competing for tight end 1 reps with Cole Kmet. I think he's the better tight end, but again, for some reason, they've just loved Cole Kmet over the years. He's going ahead of Tyler Warren, who I think I don't think Anthony Richardson's going to be their starting quarterback. So I think Daniel Jones is at least good enough to get the ball to Tyler Warren. I like Tyler Warren a lot. Kyle Pitts, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of here and there with him. I do like, the way that Penix is at least talking about they're using him as maybe more a wide receiver.
Every year.
It's every year, and I know, and I'm trying not to buy it. But then, outside of him, right, I think Tyler Warren. I like Jake Ferguson, too, with Dak coming back. I think, that's more of a steady option. The third undervalued guy that I liked a lot too over Colston Loveland, and you can get him a lot later. Brenton Strange at 235th overall, tight end 29. I just look at like what Tyler Higbee was able to do under Liam Cohen, what Cade Otton was able to do under Liam Cohen. Both of them saw improved target share and overall production. I think that I would like him a little bit later if I'm going to pair two tight ends up. Right, I don't want to take like a Goddard and a Loveland so high. I would rather take like a Goddard and a Brenton Strange really late. Yeah. But if I had to pick my tight end 1, I think I'm still going to go with Tyler Warren. I don't hate Loveland. I don't know. This offense really scares me. And I don't trust really anyone in it right now, especially not even just who.
You trust that Anthony Richardson to get Warren the ball though?
No, I don't think he's going to be a starter. I think it's going to be Daniel Jones. I mean, he's already hurt, but if it's one guy versus, I don't know. I think there's a lot of mouths to feed. Even if this offense is clicking, he's already has 2 tight ends in the room with him. So
let me say, if there's a guy you're picking in the Bears offense, let it be DeAndre Swift. And this is get this guy out of here. This is honest. I don't think Roschon Johnson or Kyle Monningai will be taking a lot of reps from him. They haven't looked the best in this preseason. I think DeAndre Swift, I think Ben Johnson believes in him because they didn't really bring in a true competitor to him. I think they're going to be using him in that pure running back slot. He can also catch passes, things like that. So I think they'll be using him in a similar role, not the same talent level as Jahmyr Gibbs, but that's going to be kind of like the dream role for him. And that's not my undervalued player, but at his current value, it is a good value. If you're going to take a Bear, I think DeAndre Swift could be a really solid running back this year in fantasy. Now, that wasn't my pick, but my real pick for the second underrated player is going to be Chase Brown. And I know Ty said that he views Alvin Kamara as like the better prospect, and I don't mind that. I think they kind of have. You can never go wrong saying that you like Alvin Kamara to me. I'm not going to lie. Like I love Alvin, and I'm a big fantasy believer in Alvin Kamara. But I think Chase Brown, he in the preseason game week 1, out of 15 Joe Burrow snaps, he touched the ball 8 times. So more than 50% of the ball, or more than 50% of plays, Chase Brown is getting the ball. And I think as a fantasy player, that's both in targets and rushes. So this guy's getting the ball a lot of the time. He's going to be active in the red zone. He's going to get you points often. And I think he's gonna be a true league winner. So I'm gonna try to find him in this rankings, find his scoring again. I lost it for a second. But Chase Brown, he's 12th in running back rankings right now. He ranked 10th last year, and that was after he didn't really play the first few weeks.
Yeah.
And then 23 points.
Down the stretch, he was like RB5 or something.
Yeah, late down in the stretch. So week 9, 26, week 10, 22, 11, 19, a bye week, 13. Week 13, he put up 19, 14, 24, 15, 26, and then a slight fall off to 13 and 13. And it was 13 points against the Broncos. Let me say that. So I think this is a guy that you can truly trust, and getting him at RB12 when he's going to be a possible RB1 in this year's, like a top 8 running back in this year's fantasy season, it just screams undervalued to me. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think obviously, his big value comes in the passing game because this defense being so bad, late in games, they have to throw the ball. Teams are running too high shells, kind of trying to take T. Higgins and Jamar Chase out of the game. And this is where guys like him and Mike Gesicki kind of just eat on those dink downs over the middle. I like him. I just don't think the guys ahead of him, I would take him over. I think I would take him over Jeanty, obviously, and McCaffrey. Maybe McCaffrey. Like the guys that we talked about that were already overvalued. But I don't think that I would take him over like a Kyron or a Bucky. I feel like his undervalue kind of comes at the, hand in hand with the other guys being overvalued. But I do like him a lot more than the guys right behind him. Like James Cook, I like Chase Brown a lot more. I think the gap there is like massive. Kenneth Walker, I think the gap gets even bigger. And then Kamara, I like Kamara. But then, after that, it's like Hampton, Hubbard, Breece Hall. A lot of question marks. So I think that if you're in a position where it's Chase Brown, James Cook, or Kenneth Walker, you got to smash the Chase Brown button.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
With like,
so what do you think?
With like early round running backs, it's just hard for me to get behind like separating the player and the fantasy output. Like that's why, he's going to be a value here, and that's totally fine with me. I rather would just have other players on my team, even though he's going to produce at like probably a running back 1 level, probably inside that top 12. But like players like him, players like Kyron, I just don't think are that great. So I have a hard time clicking the button. But like you guys said, they're not going to be in games or they're going to be in close games and passing situations quite a lot. And that lends to Chase Brown, and they didn't really bring in all that much competition for him. I think Taj Brooks and Samaje Perine. That doesn't really scare me.
And they cut Zach Long
again. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, but like I've heard about this guy for a while because I'm friends with a lot of people from Illinois. He's a workhorse in college. He can be a workhorse in the NFL. I just don't think he's a good one. So like if you want to take him here, I think he's going to outproduce, but I just don't prefer to watch these sort of players that I think are a little overrated just because of their fantasy output. So I'll be taking other guys here, but he's going to be a value. So
I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind either of those arguments at all, if I'm being honest. So I will say we ran a little bit longer. So real quick, do you guys have any extra names just to name real quick, over or undervalued, that you just want to name drop?
Yeah, before I name drop, Brenton Strange is an undervalued guy, and then my other overvalued guy was Colston Loveland. So the tight ends for me, I don't know. Tight end's a murky position.
Yeah, Sterb, what about you?
Yeah, and then I had like Tetero McMillan was a hard cut for me. I loved him as a prospect. He's going at ADP 85 right now as bona fide number 1 for that offense.
Yep.
He's going to be down in a lot of games. I also have Rashid Shaheed. That's my guy. And Saints fans know that he's going to produce when he's on the field. He's not that much different than like these high upside guys who have a low floor just because they're deep threats. I think he's better than Alec Pierce as a player. And if they can find like ways to utilize him in like a new role, I also don't think he's like that far off from like Jameson Williams or Xavier Worthy as a talent, to be honest. And if he employs like a new role, it's just wheels up, and I told people to draft him last year, and they're like, thank you. And then, after week 6, I think he got injured, but that dude's an absolute beast. He's been killing in camp. And it's kind of also like the who else argument, because you don't really have a lot of targets in the Saints offense. Unfortunately, but yeah, this guy could have like a 20% target share and just be absolutely eating week to week.
Yeah, and a few guys that I had no more overvalued guys. It was kind of everyone else got picked. But I think over or undervalued, I got Dak Prescott as a quarterback. We won't go into the quarterback conversation because we ran way too long. I got Dak Prescott. I have T-Mac as well. I think Tedero McMillan's in for a really big year. And then I already mentioned DeAndre Swift. So no one else to add there. So moving on from the fantasy conversation, we'll let Sterb introduce his little topic real quick, and then we'll get into that.
Wait. One thing. Got to shout out my guy, Drake May. Everyone loves him, right? But what people don't realize is that he's a very good scrambler as well. 421 rushing yards last season, 407 of them coming on scrambles. And players with 11% scramble rate and over 8 yards per scramble, the only players to do it since 2000. I'm going to read off this list. Don't shoot the messenger. Michael Vick, Vince Young, Terrell Pryor, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, and Justin Fields. If there is a true vanilla Vic in the NFL, it is Drake May. All right, we'll move on to the keep 3 cut 5 here.
Not for a narrative, but
The Drake May glaze. Oh my God, yo!
Oh God, he's wearing a shirt for all the listeners. He's wearing a shirt. All right, Sterb, move on. Sorry, I cut you off.
All right. We got to keep 3 cut 5 here. Don't look at the ADP. It will be cheating a little bit. We're going to go based off of how well they will outperform their ADP. So I'm going to read you a veteran wide receiver with the ADP in ESPN from 50 to 100. And then you have to keep 3 that you think will outproduce those ADP the most. And then cut 5 that you're fading their ADP. All right. Number 1 on the list, we're going to go Courtland Sutton at ADP 69.8.
Okay. All right. So wait, are you giving the whole list or
no, one at a time?
We got to do it blind. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I only get 3 keeps. I'm gonna fade. I'm gonna fade Courtland.
You guys got to go consensus on this as well.
I gotta go fade because
let's fade it. There's a lot of weapons that they put in. Let's fade it.
Okay, you're fading. All right, we'll go Calvin Ridley, ADP 73.8.
I'm keeping that one.
Keeping that, yeah.
Especially with Cam Ward
keeping that.
Yeah.
Okay. Jerry Jeudy, ADP 81.0.
Cut it so fast.
I know where this is going.
Not even close.
I'm fine with fading it. Good for Dynasty, but
we're waiting on your input there.
Yeah, fade.
We're gonna go Jakobi Meyers, 99.2.
We'll keep Ty. You want to keep it?
Yeah.
All right. Next name up on the list, we got DJ Moore, 62.2.
Fade.
Fade.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys only have 1 spot left on the keep, and you have 3 guys left. All right. Here we go. We got Cooper Kupp at 94.0.
I'm gonna fade.
I'm gonna fade too. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Kupp this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Choosing between 2 names here. We got DK Metcalf at 49.1. He's a little bit out of that 50 range, but I put him in there.
I know you like him a lot, Jenks. I kind of like him too. He is like the option there. Yeah.
And you got Rodgers throwing the ball, could be like a Devontae type connection. Like I would say keep Ty, but I'll let you.
Let's keep it and hope this last one's Xavier Worthy or some shit.
Yeah, don't bite us in the ass here, Sterb.
Okay, so the names that we got off the board, you guys kept Calvin Ridley, ADP 73.8, Jakobi Meyers, ADP 99.2, DK Metcalf, 49.1, and then you cut Courtland Sutton, 69.8, Jerry Jeudy, 81.0, DJ Moore, 62.2, Cooper Kupp, 94.0, and the last name was Stephon Diggs at ADP 99.5.
I like that.
How are you guys feeling?
I'm all right.
I like cutting that. Yeah, I like the other options in that room. I like Efton Chisholm a lot, and I like Kyle Williams a lot. I'm not really high on Steph Diggs, so I think we did that.
Kind of guy.
Yeah, I got him in Dynasty. Yeah, no, I think we made the right choices there.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with our list. This was fun. Yeah, I'm glad Sterb came up with this right before we started, so I think it went well, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah, a little rip from the Pick a Side podcast, but I would probably swap out if I had the choice. Stephon Diggs and DK Metcalf if I was given.
I don't mind it at the ADP. I don't mind that.
Yeah,
but right, like Diggs is pretty low down there, and he could be a guy that that forms a real connection with Drake May. So I think that's a fine take. Anyways, we ran a little bit over an hour, I think, so it's going to be cutting it close, but this was a really good episode. I think the fantasy fans out there will like it. Let us know down below if you guys listened all the way to the end, and let us know what you guys disagree or agreed with. Comment down below and share with any of your friends if they're into fantasy as well. You guys know where to check us out on social media at Jenks Island and wherever you get your podcasts at Jenks Island as well. And we'll see you guys next week.